Afternoon, everyone. I am having some computer issues, so I'm on my phone, but we will get started, assuming there's a quorum. Don, would you take the roll?
Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Mr. Grubb.
I'm having difficulty hearing her.
Mr. Campbell. Mr. Borboom.
Here.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Here. This is Chuck. Here.
Mr. Olson. Mr. Breitling.
Here.
Ms. Maggio. Mrs. Preston. Mr. Zimmerman.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you, Don. All right, you have in front of you the agenda. Today is Wednesday, July 21st, 2021. This is the Diversion Authority Land Management Committee. Are there any changes to the agenda or a motion to approve?
Move to approve the agenda. Breitling.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Nathan will second.
Thank you, Nathan. All those opposed, say aye. And the agenda is approved. Let's go on down to item number 3. Eric, you've got the property acquisition status report, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioner Committee members. Hopefully you all had a chance to look through the packet, but I'll scroll down here and follow along on the screen if you will. Page 3 of the packet is the overall status map. And as usual, the last probably several months, we continue to acquire a small handful of parcels each month. No change in that, I guess, path over the last month here. We've got a small handful have been acquired. And continue to really focus our attention on the Red River Control Structure, the Drain 27 Wetland Project, and now the Southern Embankment Reach 2A, as well as a scattering of properties in the upstream area, mostly the building sites in the upstream area. Obviously, you can see that there's still a lot of appraisals ongoing in the upstream area for flow easement valuations. Progress being made in that regard. The next page of the report focuses on environmental monitoring easements. In the last month, we did have kind of a strategy game planning session with the Corps as well as some Diversion Authority reps. Talked about how to move forward and whether or not we absolutely needed 100% of all these environmental monitoring easements. Had a good discussion with that group. Conclusions are that we do need to proceed with acquiring 100% of these. And so we're continuing to work on some strategies to try to move those along. Unfortunately, we are probably going to have some roadblocks with a handful of the property owners. And so that's something that we'll continue to work with both the Cass County Joint Board and the MCC-JPA Board as that moves forward. The remainder of the report drills into each specific area, and I guess I don't have any real specifics to point out there, but would be happy to stand for any questions if you have any. Mary's maybe still working on computer issues, so if anybody else has questions or comments, concerns, happy to address those as usual.
Great. Anyone have any questions for Eric? Okay, then we will just move right on to the property exchange requests that we've received.
Yeah, so starting on page 12 of your packet is a letter from the Cass County Joint Board followed by a map showing the parcels in question. I know there's been a comprehensive lands policy passed. That policy still requires any land exchanges to go through the diversion board. And as a precursor to that, we like to bring these types of items to the land committee for consideration. So in your packet is a letter briefly summarizing that we have a property owner in the upstream area that has a small business and would like to continue operating their business. They've been looking for replacement sites, and they've identified a piece of land that the project owns adjacent to the project footprint where they would like to relocate their business. This has been considered by the Cass County Joint Board, and they have agreed in concept with the exchange, obviously subject to consideration by the full DA board. And so our practice has been to draft the letter, present it to the land committee for consideration, and if the land committee agrees with the recommendation, then that would get passed on to the DA board. So I guess maybe just cover a little bit of the details on the map on page 13. The yellow highlighted parcel is what we're working to acquire. There's a residence, a couple outbuildings, again, operates a business out of that facility. And that green highlighted box is land that we had bought several years ago, and recommending the exchange of those lands to help facilitate the replacement of these properties. I'll pause there, see if there's comments, questions.
Questions, anyone? And hold on here a second. Go ahead, Eric.
No, nothing else.
Okay, so I have a question. How does our policy address the land exchanges, and why would this fall outside of that policy?
The joint powers agreement that form the diversion authority still requires any land exchanges or sale of any project owned land be brought forward to the board. The policy provides some guidance on how we manage and ultimately sell off land. One of the provisions in the policy is to allow for these types of exchanges. I think it's section 11 or section 12 of the policy. And so basically that provision, basically says that we would consider proposed land exchanges. The joint board and the MCCJPA board would consider those and then bring those forward to the DA board for full consideration. So kind of the process that we're following.
Sure. And the landowner is satisfied with this arrangement?
Yeah, the landowner has been working real closely with the land agent, and they've been scouring the area to find replacement site that would suit their needs. And that's a real challenge that we've been struggling with not only this property owner, but quite a few of them. And so that's something we're spending a fair amount of our time and energy is talking about. How do we handle the lack of availability of replacement sites? So in this situation, the property owner had worked with the land agent to identify the exchange site, and they approached our team and the joint board with the concept, and here we are.
So based on where this land appears to be located, are they going to get wet very often? I mean, it looks like they would be pretty dry most of the time.
Yeah, so it's maybe a little bit hard to tell on the map here, but this site this is County Road 16, the east-west road, and I-29 is just east of the map limits. So the St. Benedict Church is right north of this parcel. Some of the fireworks stores and implement dealers are right in this area as well. So if you drive I-29, you're pretty familiar with this area. The bridge work that's under construction, and the I-29 road raise is just south of here. The wild rice control structure is just south of this site as well. Well, it's on the dry side of the embankment, if you will.
Sure.
I know there may be some residual flooding that comes through some of these, or residual floodplain that comes through some of these drains. The landowner has talked with Stanley Township, who controls development and zoning in this area, and gotten the sort of the green light, I guess, from their perspective.
So if this was a residential area, would the Corps allow us to build there? Or, I mean, because it is pretty close, isn't it?
Yeah, it is fairly close. The permit agencies have encouraged limited or responsible growth downstream of the embankment. And as the authority, we don't have zoning control. And so what the authority has done is passed along those recommendations from the state agencies to the zoning and permitting authorities. So that would be Stanley Township in this case. The city of Fargo has some zoning jurisdiction just north of here, and then the city of Horace has zoning jurisdiction to the west.
And everybody is okay with this?
Well, if we approve this, I would anticipate that the property owner would still need to go get their building permits and, go through all that sort of process to move forwards.
Okay.
This would be allowing them to proceed.
Sure. And then just to confirm that the Cass County Joint Water Resource District has recommended to move forward with this exchange.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Well, that's all my questions. Does anybody else have any questions? And if not, I would entertain a motion.
Breitling would move that we recommend to the Diversion Authority that this exchange be approved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Chuck, I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote on this one, please.
Mrs. Sherling,
Yes.
Mayor Peterson,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Borblum,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
Mr. Breitling,
Yes.
Ms. Monjo,
Yes.
Mrs. Preston,
Yes.
And the motion carries. Were you finished, Don?
Yep, that is everyone.
Okay. You're a little difficult to hear. Maybe you need to get a little closer to the microphone.
If I can get, is that any better?
Oh, much better. Thanks.
Is it? Okay.
All right. Item number 6, upstream landowner informational meetings.
I think we have number 5 first. If you prefer, I can handle 6.
I'm sorry. Yes, I got ahead of myself. Let's go to number 5, the resolution establishing the Alternative Dispute Resolution Board.
John will cover that for you.
Good afternoon, members of the Land Management Committee and Chair. Before you, you have a resolution establishing the Alternative Dispute Resolution Board. Just a kind of a little bit of background. The Office of State Engineering in North Dakota had recommended and included this as a permit requirement that we create this Alternative Dispute Resolution Board. It is modeled after a similar type of board that is on, or that is connected with the Devil's Lake Outlet Project. The intent of this board is to provide a less formal manner of resolving disputes, smaller disputes regarding the project operating outside of the existing flowage easement. So for example, if a landowner claimed that the flowage easement impacted additional lands or left a debris on their property or some other type of claim, they could bring a claim through the Alternative Dispute Resolution Board in a less formal way than going to formal court. They could obviously just bypass this board and go to court and litigate if they wanted. But the intent is to provide an administrative avenue for parties to potentially resolve their claims. This was a resolution that has been reviewed and has been put together by a smaller group, including myself, some of the board members. We put some time into this. We've also shared this through Joel with the other entities that are listed as potentially providing hearing officers. The hearing officers would be people that would have legal, financial, real estate experience. They have to be neutral. They can't have a conflict of interest. Included within the resolution is the process for filing the appeal and kind of just outlining what the hearing process would look like. I think we put a lot of work into this, and we think that we're ready to move it forward, and that's why we're bringing it to the Land Management Committee. Can certainly answer any questions that you might have. And I would also note this is also discussed in the Property Rights Acquisition and Mitigation Plan manual, which is part of the Minnesota DNR permit also. So this is really a permitting requirement. And then finally, claims before this board wouldn't start till the project actually operates, but they wanted us to establish the board earlier rather than later.
Thank you. Questions? Surely someone has a question. Well, I'll start it off. So you've notified these counties and visited with them about their participation?
I have not personally done that, but Joel has been in contact, and maybe Joel would have some comments regarding that.
And I guess just further, so when you mention a county, this would just be a random citizen, obviously, that would have to meet the requirements, that lives in that county. Is that how I'm understanding it?
That's correct. It could also be potentially, I suppose it could be a county commissioner from that county, but they would have to meet the qualifications also. So potentially a county commissioner or former county commissioner or a former state's attorney or some, one of the more prominent bankers in the community. Those are the types of people that would qualify as a hearing officer and that we would be looking for, because they would have to also be impartial in the process. They couldn't just be, looking out for landowners. They have to hear the evidence on both sides.
Sure. So it appears to me that this is, you're trying to be geographically representative of the area up and down the valley. But that being said, the Mindak Upstream Coalition would be then represented twice. And just by its nature, I don't know how that group would be neutral at all. Wouldn't that be a conflict of interest? I'm just questioning why that group is listed on here.
Well, I'll let Joel get into a little bit of the policy background of that, but they would not be able to serve on claims that would regarding the southern embankment and storage area. And so they would be able to serve, that person would be able to serve as a hearing officer if somebody claimed some type of a downstream impact or an impact from the channel.
Well, and I'll let Joel answer that in more depth, but if you're having a group like that, wouldn't you want to include other groups? The Chamber of Commerce from Cass and Clay County, for example. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Joel, do you have some insight?
Yes, Commissioner Sherling. So I have been in coordination with the counties and the Upstream Coalition that are contained within this dispute resolution. A lot of great comments. I've really just been working to clarify the intent of the board, what the duties of the counties are in relation to appointing officers. And really, this would be a board that would be administered by the Diversion Authority. Getting to your question about the Upstream Coalition, their objectives have changed since the settlement agreement. They now view themselves as representing the community in the upstream mitigation area that is specifically impacted by the project. There was a request by the Upstream Coalition for us to consider a officer in relation to the Dispute Resolution Board after the project is complete. They feel they're in a unique position and have contact with those that are most impacted by this program. It was conveyed to them that if the dispute was contained within the upstream mitigation area, that officer from the Upstream Coalition and that county would be exempt from sitting on the Dispute Resolution Board. And so they do understand that. I have been attending all of their recent meetings for the past 4 months. They are very interested in looking out for the landowners' interests and well-being in regards to the impacts of this program and in the acquisition of flowage easements and property rights. So, you know, I guess the question before the Land Committee would be are they there to be recognized as a party that has an interest in resolving disputes related to the project long term? They are considered an entity under North Dakota law. They do have a board and a charter, and they are according legally they meet all of those requirements to be an entity for consideration. But I'll leave it up to the Land Committee to kind of discuss whether they are open to that idea. But the request did come from the Upstream Coalition to be a part of this board long-term after the project is implemented.
Well, it would just seem to me that their interests would continue to be self-serving for landowners in that area. You know, what we need is for people to look at the larger picture and understand the interests of landowners up and down the valley. That's who I'm hoping would be sitting on this board. I don't see how that would agree with the intent of this resolution board, but I will defer to other board members.
And Madam Chair, maybe John could go over just the logistics of when a claim comes in and how this board kind of comes together and considers the item at hand.
Sure. So this board will have a fairly narrow jurisdiction. It's based upon a claim that comes in. So it's not looking at, you know, a whole bunch of claims. It would be each board could have different officers. So there'll be 3 hearing officers so that you couldn't deadlock. They'll receive a claim. Then there would be 3 that would be randomly appointed. Pursuant to the resolution for the MnDOT Coalition, they couldn't hear claims that originate in the southern embankment area. And then you would proceed to process the claim with those 3 hearing officers. And they have, like any quasi-judicial officer, they would have to disclose any potential conflicts. And really their role is to resolve the potential conflict and claim that is brought by the landowner based upon those facts. It's really not a policy finding board. They hear the claim, the authority would present any evidence that it might have, and then the hearing officers would make a decision. The parties could potentially appeal it to a district court if they disagreed with the ruling. So that's really, it's not a policy making board. Each individual claim is heard by potentially different hearing officers.
But the appeal would be awarded from this group, and the appeal would be funds from taxpayers from Cass County.
Yeah, potentially. Correct. But I mean, we do want to maintain some impartiality by the hearing officers. And so I would hope that they would, you know, follow their requirements of being impartial and presiding over the hearing claims, and not just view it as awarding money and not hearing the facts and making a decision based upon the facts and the law that's presented.
It also seems to me to be an awful lot of folks on this. 14 is a big number. How did you end up with that?
The 14 is the sort of the pool. Is not actually 14 people would be hearing the claim. It would be 3 hearing officers would hear a claim. And so it's just a pool of hearing officers. So for instance, we would request that Ada appoint somebody as a hearing officer. They may not hear a claim for years. They may just sit as a hearing officer in the pool. We get a claim that comes through and they get selected to sit on the hearing panel.
So if that's the case, why wouldn't you have a group of folks that have nothing to do with the project? The Kinsey County Commissioner, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. And I'm not trying to beat you up on this. I haven't been part of this process, so it's all new to me.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
just kind of developing thoughts on this as this discussion goes forward. I think that having folks that are directly affected and understand the nature of the valley really would be important to have present on that. I understand that you want to have elected officials or distinguished people or whoever from other areas, but I'm not quite sure they really understand the growing season and the issues that we specifically have in the valley. I think that having this upstream coalition or whoever really coming to us saying they want to be part of mitigating and moving forward should be looked at positively, personally.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Joel or John, do you have anything else to add?
Madam Chair, I have just one thing, and I'm not sure if General Counsel Shockley mentioned it, but this is generally intended to be claims of under $50,000. So really the intent here is to create a forum that can resolve issues without having to go through the expense of district court. But however, as John mentioned, if either party continued to dispute the resolution that came out of this board, they would have those legal options available to them, both the DA and the claimant in this case, in whatever case it might be. So this is, sort of, I guess you can, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an attorney, but in my perspective, this is sort of like a mediation board that can attempt to resolve claims before either party has to expend resources on legal attorneys. So.
Yeah, and just to put a little finer point on that, it is very much like an arbitration board in that you have the 3 hearing officers. You'll see in section 308 that our intent was and requirement to have hearing officer training. We had, assuming board approval, we're going to reach out to a couple of the judges in the area or retired judges and see if they could provide a little bit of training. Maybe the state of Minnesota has a great alternative dispute resolution process, and they could also provide some training and some materials so that they get training on how to be impartial and how to hear these claims. And Joel's right, if it has a limited jurisdiction for how much it can award, and then if either party's not satisfied with it, it can just appeal it to a district court.
Well, I appreciate all those answers. I still greatly struggle with the list you've got here, particularly because all the other entities other than the North Dakota State Engineer are counties. And so, you've got Wilkin County in there, you've got Richland County, I'm not sure why you need to have double representation from that area. So I won't support that portion of it. The rest of it's great, but not number 14. Anybody else? Or a motion? And this is a motion to, you're looking for recommendation one way or another to the full DA board?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Madam
So
Chair,
we
I'll
need-
make a motion to approve the recommendation with the list as stated.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there a second?
Mayor Peterson does a second.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Don.
Shirley,
No.
Mayor Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Borboom,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
Brightly,
Yes.
Ms. Maggio,
Yes.
Mrs. Preston,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Thank you, Don, and the motion carries. Now, let's move on to the landowner informational meetings.
Hi, welcome back. We have scheduled 2 informational meetings for upstream landowners. First one is tonight, second one tomorrow night. Same content, same place, but 2 different meeting times just for flexibility and availability purposes. I did include the invite that went out to about 320 some property owners in your packet. So tonight at the meeting, we will have a brief welcome comments from Joel. One of the engineers from Houston Moore Group, Greg Thompson, will be giving a summary presentation about project operations, kind of serving as a foundation for how the project will operate after it's completed. I'm going to share some information about a variety of the mitigation programs that we've developed. Many of those are for the settlement agreement, but many of them have been outlined in the mitigation plan for some time as well. Along with that, sharing information about the flow easement process, as well as the restrictions that will come for development with the flow easement. And then, if you recall, the Diversion Authority did hire a group called Watts and Associates to help us advance the crop insurance offerings. And so Alex Offerdahl from Watts happens to be in town this week, so he'll be there tonight presenting an update on our status of developing crop insurance. So that's at the Hickson Community Center. Look forward to hopefully a good group of property out there. I know we've been getting interest from people wanting to know more details, and so we look forward to being able to share as much of that as we can tonight and tomorrow night. A group of our land agents will be there, the appraisers from Crown doing the flow easement study, a couple of reps from the Corps, and so looking forward to that. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
And how did you get the word out on this?
So this is a postcard that, the address and things would go on the first page. That was sent out to about 320 some property owners, probably 10 days ago, I suppose.
Okay. Well, I would guess that you'd have a good turnout.
Yeah.
Good luck. Any questions for Eric about that? Okay, then. You've got the committee update for the DA board. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I don't think so. I mean, in some regards, it's, we're processing through a lot of acquisitions and negotiations. Some of them are going well and others are kind of stalling out. And I guess that's sort of par for the course, I suppose, of how we've been operating for the last several months. So a lot of the, every month they do these updates, this section here ends up being sort of similar from month to month, but I guess that's where we're at. Did make the comment about the landowner meetings as well. So, yeah, nothing else that I would add.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
Somebody has a question, that sounds.
Quiet group. Okay, I know the Cass County Joint Board's been busy. What's going on?
I don't know if Roger was on or not. I did talk with Roger this morning. I know he has some interest in the landowner meetings tonight. I know the joint board has been continuing to contemplate offers and counter offers. We've got a couple different appraisals that will be presented to the group tomorrow for structure sites, building sites upstream. One of the other things that we're starting to spend a little bit of energy on with the P3 developer selected anyway, is the farmland management side of things. And so tomorrow, the farmland manager from the developer plans to attend the joint board meeting just as an introduction. We, as you may recall, the developer has a responsibility of managing the farmlands in the channel footprint. And so we're working towards making that handoff as seamless as possible. So that'll be a few things in front of the joint board tomorrow.
Questions? Move on to Minnesota then, please.
Yeah, Mary, we have not met since I gave a report last time to our full DA board. We do meet tomorrow. We do have a couple of appraisals to go over. One is a revised appraisal, and then we are also looking at some appraisals along with the replacement housing differential payments. And then also, for the first time I've seen, we have a pest control issue on on a structure that we were going to talk about tomorrow. It's on a historical cabin that's, I think the plan is being negotiated to move it to the West Central Steam Threshers site in Rolog. But apparently they have an issue with some powder post beetles. So we're gonna, and the recommendation is for us to treat that so that that historical structure is not damaged any further. And that's really all I have, Mary.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions for the Minnesota side? We have a MetroCog update. Was there anyone from MetroCog that had anything to add? I don't think so.
No, I did not hear any feedback from Adam, Mary, this month. So I'm not sure.
Okay. Anything else we need to be discussing, Eric, or Joel, or John, or any of the staff? Anything that should be on our radar?
I would just again echo a comment I made earlier that as we continue to work with the property owners upstream, in particular those that have rural residential properties and even farmsteads, we continue to hear a concern about finding replacement sites. And so that's just one of the items that we're continuing to work on. I don't have any action or anything for the board's consideration or the committee's consideration here today, but wanted to just be aware that that's something that's sort of the flavor of the day that we're dealing with and trying to wrestle down some options.
Well, considering just the real estate scene in general right now, that's got to be extremely difficult to find anything.
Right, exactly. And Joel's got all these new workers coming to town that's going to complicate it further.
Yeah. Well, we might have a campground for them to go to. We're working on that, so. You never know.
I don't have anything too new to talk about. I just want to express my gratitude for Eric and his team for putting these meetings together tonight and tomorrow. Overwhelmingly, I hear folks wanting to have answers to their questions. And we are now at a point where we have answers to all of the questions and concerns that we've heard over the years and that we've logged. So these meetings that we're having tonight and tomorrow, and hopefully additional ones in the future, are great opportunities for people to come and ask their questions and get their answers that they have been looking for all these years. So we certainly have turned it a corner here with the program in many different respects. And I think we've created some great mitigation programs that really find a good compromise for all of the questions and concerns that we've had related to the impacts of the diversion project. So I'm looking forward to tonight. We'll see how it goes, and we certainly will look to do more of these in the future if they go well.
So the last time I was at a meeting, not in Hickson, but south of Fargo, I'm trying to think of the name, Christine, there was a ton of questions that were being directed at Eric because they all thought he was a hydrologist. Are you bringing a hydrologist? Because they had a lot of questions about their riverbanks and you know how things were going to be affected that way. And those, that wasn't our presentation, but honestly, that was the information they wanted.
Yeah, we have a good group of people coming tonight. The core is going to be there. We are going to have folks from HMG. Chris Bockygaard, our engineering director, and Jennifer Darling, our communications director, and myself will all be there. We also have the folks from Watts and Crown Appraisals that have been working on the crop insurance and the flowage easements. And then of course we'll have Eric and his staff members as well that can speak to all of the other mitigation programs that we have. So I think with the folks that are attending tonight, we should be able to answer any questions that we get that are maybe somewhat unrelated to what the content of the intent of the meeting is. So.
Well, great. Well, I think you're going to have a great turnout. I certainly hope so. Thanks to all of you for putting that together. Anything else? Joel, Eric, what are we talking for future meetings? I think this is the last one that was scheduled to be virtual. But now I don't know if there's a conflict in November, perhaps December, but you know, we don't meet unless we need to. So yeah, we want to kind of tip off the board.
Commissioner Sherling, we are planning to be in person in August, in September, October. November and December do have conflicts with the city council chambers, but we have some time to work on that. And so hopefully we don't have to go back to virtual, but the intent would be for the meetings from here on forward to be in person, unless we just can't figure out a solution for the conflict with the city commission chambers of the city of Fargo.
So my only request is that we have a virtual option, and we've always had a call-in option, but you know, I think particularly for committee meetings like this, there's always going to be someone that can't make it, but could potentially do a virtual meeting. And so I want to make sure that you know, we can value people's time and you know, do that option. I personally would rather chair a meeting in person, and you know, and usually I'm able to do that, but I just think that that's something that we should try to always make available for our committee members. So, you know, we're sure to get as good input from everyone as we possibly can. But again, this committee has been very vocal to me that they don't want to meet unless there's a good reason to meet. So we'll be respectful of that as well. So just because he said we can meet in August together, we may not. I don't know. Eric, are we meeting next month, do you think?
Well, that's a good question. I guess I haven't given a whole lot of thought to the August meeting potential topics yet. I can certainly coordinate with you and Joel on that and keep the committee apprised as well. So
once we get things ironed out, and we're very, we're making great progress on that. I don't anticipate that this committee would be meeting monthly. We did a long pause during our litigation period, of course. There wasn't much to meet on, but I would hope that, maybe we could make these quarterly meetings once we have our policies in place and, the urgent things that need to be taken care of. That's kind of what I have in my mind, but I don't know if that's how it's going to work out or not. But go ahead, Joel.
I was just going to mention that, yes, the City of Fargo Commission Chambers, they do have the virtual options. The way I understand it, it's not Teams, so it would be a different system. So we sometimes run into problems when we transition systems, just to make sure everybody understands how to log in and those sorts of things. But we will provide that option, and we will provide as detailed instructions as we can on how to log into the City of Fargo's system.
Well, and Cass County certainly has Teams, and we're happy to host this group. And I've heard Clay County has a pretty spiffy setup too. So I haven't been over there yet, but and I'm not volunteering them, but I think there's other options that are available if City of Fargo has conflicts. So
yeah, and then I'll also just note, Madam Chair, you're absolutely correct. I mean, the Land Committee is intended to contemplate policies related to the lands program and mitigation. And you're right, we've come so far in our policy development and our plan development for we're really getting into the implementation of those policies and plans at this point. And so there may not necessarily be a need to have meetings if there isn't any of that policy. And we could still send out the monthly update of the lands program, even if there isn't a meeting, to all committee members, so people can continue to follow along with the progress that we're making. And so, yeah, we'll definitely work together to determine and use our discretion on whether a meeting's necessary or not. So
great, thank you. Does anyone have any other business for the good of the order? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Campbell, second.
Thanks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Good luck tonight, guys.